Each continent has a national team that dominates. So in this video we'll see what is the strongest country in the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe and even Oceania. Football is in every corner of the globe, but what is actually the best team from each continent? Let's find out. Starting with South America, and for a long time the best national team was the 5-time champion Brazil. Up until 2022 Brazil was flying high and went to Qatar with its best qualifying campaign ever. But after the defeat against Croatia, with manager changes, Brazil went downhill, having in 2023 its worst year in decades, even losing to Colombia and Senegal. And at the same time, another team is having one of their best moments in history, Argentina. Under the manager Lionel Scaloni, Argentina had its longest unbeaten streak ever, going from 2019 to 2022 without losing a single match. They went 36 games without losing, until Saudi Arabia broke that streak. Even so, they continued and defeated everyone on their way to win the World Cup for the third time. Then after that kept playing well, even beating Brazil recently. So Argentina is by far the best in South America and first place in the FIFA ranking. Now let's move to the next continent, and one with really strong teams, Africa. After Africa, we will talk about all the other continents, from Asia to North America and Europe. And for a long time, the best team in Africa was Senegal, led by Mane. With their great players, they won the Copa Nations in 2021. And apart from Senegal, in Africa there's Egypt, led by Salah, Nigeria with Ousmane and Chukwueze, Algeria with Mahrez, and a team that won the last Copa Nations was Ivory Coast with Haller and Kessié. So in the FIFA ranking, Ivory Coast climbed 10 positions, but still stands at a 39th place. Meanwhile, there's a national team from Africa in 12th place, even ahead of Germany. And this is a country that did what no other African national team had done, reached the World Cup semi-final. Never in history had an African team reached the semis, until Morocco, led by the manager Walid Regragui, broke the record. Many thought they wouldn't even make it past the group stage, that also included Belgium and Croatia, the previous World Cup runner-up and 3rd place. But Morocco surprised everyone. They made it to the round of 16 by drawing with Croatia and defeating Belgium 2-0, also defeating Canada. So Morocco qualified, defeated Spain on penalties, and in the quarterfinals against Portugal,
In the series!
1-0. For the first time in history, an African team was in the semi-final of the World Cup. But then they faced France and were defeated. Even so, with this incredible campaign, entered history, and are now 12th place in the FIFA ranking, the best from Africa. And speaking of teams that made history in Qatar, we go to the largest continent of the earth, Asia. In the World Cup, Argentina's only defeat was against an Asian team, Saudi Arabia. Today, Saudi Arabia has the strongest league in Asia with some legendary players. Also, their national team is growing each year, but in the rankings are still too far behind, ranked 53rd. In another national team growing fast is Qatar, that was the Asian Cup champion, but still ranking 37th. Ahead of Qatar, there's South Korea with Son Heung-min ranked 22nd place, and Iran with Taremi in 20th. But there is still a better ranked Asian team, and the best is a country that didn't even have a professional league until the 90s, Japan. Yes, the J-League started in 1993, and before that the league was literally amateur. On top of that, they have never even played a World Cup, until the J-League started and football started to improve a lot, improving also the national team. So after Japan qualified for its first World Cup in 1998, they qualified to every cup since then and even managed to go to the round of 16 in the last 2 editions. But it was in Qatar that they really surprised everyone when falling in a group of death with Costa Rica, Spain and Germany. Japan was already considered eliminated, but Japan managed to defeat Germany 2-1 and against Spain also won, qualifying as group leaders. So in the FIFA rankings, they surpassed Iran. A few years ago, Japan was in the 60th place, but now is the highest ranked Asian national team, standing in 18th, top 20. Now let's move on to the next continent, and the smallest of all, Oceania. Oceania is so small that only 0.5% of the world's population lives there. And when we look at the national teams from Oceania, football isn't all that great. One of their countries, Papua New Guinea, is ranked 165th, Fiji 168th, and even New Zealand is 103rd place. They all play for the UFC, which is by far the weakest football federation. Dude, Zambia, China, Uganda and Haiti are ranked higher than New Zealand. But there's a country so much better than the others that had to leave the UFC, Australia. Up until 2005, Australia was part of the UFC. And just to give you an idea on how dominant they were, in the final of the UFC World Cup qualifiers in 2005, they defeated the Solomon Islands 11-1 on aggregate. And in the qualifiers for 2002, in a group with Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and American Samoa, Australia scored 66 goals in 4 games. They won 22-0 against Tonga and 31-0 against American Samoa. Just one Australian player scored 10 goals in that match. Unbelievable. So Australia needed bigger challenges, even to improve their own players. So they started playing for Asia in the AFC. And it seems to be working, cause since 2006 they've qualified to every World Cup. Now the Socceroos are doing very well, ranking 23rd in the FIFA ranking, their best position in the last 12 years, yeah. Now let's move to the other side of the globe, and before going to North America and Europe, let's see what is the best national team in Central America. And as I mentioned in previous videos, Central America is considered part of North America, but also a region in itself. So let's separate them both. And the best team in Central America was Costa Rica, that made it to the quarterfinals of the 2014 World Cup, qualifying from the group of death. But since 2022, they've been going downhill, losing many games, so were surpassed by another team. And his team actually defeats Costa Rica easily. Panama. The Panamanian squad doesn't have famous players. The most notable is the fullback Amir Murillo, who plays for Marseille. Now they are still active top scorer, plays for a team in Panama, and a player with the highest market value plays for Houston in the MLS. Even so, Panama became the best team in Central America, and they deserved it. In the CONCACAF Nations League, Panama didn't lose in the group stage, and in the quarterfinals against Costa Rica, won 3-0 away and 3-1 at home. Final score 6-1. Even in the Gold Cup, the biggest CONCACAF competition, Panama made it to the final and only lost to Mexico. So they are the best team there, sitting at a 44th place in the FIFA ranking. And speaking of CONCACAF, let's move on to the place that will host the next World Cup, North America. As we separated them from Central America, here in North America we're left with only 3 countries, Mexico, the United States and Canada. And Canada is very good compared to what it was before. Between 2016 and 2017, they were behind the 100th position in the ranking, even dropping to 122nd place. Until they started to improve a lot, and with Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Buchanan and many others, qualified for the World Cup for the first time since the 1980s. They had a huge growth. But since Qatar are having unstable moments and now sits in a 50th place in the ranking. So the best team is either Mexico or the United States. And the biggest champion of the Gold Cup is Mexico. Historically, Mexicans dominate CONCACAF. But in the last matches between Mexico and the US, things are different. The last time Mexico defeated the US men's team was in 2019. Since then, there have been 6 matches with 2 draws and 4 wins to the US. The last victory was a 3-0. On top of that, the United States was the 2023 Nations League champion. So while Mexico is in 15th place, the United States with Pulisic, Timothy Weah, Matt Turner and so on are ranked 13th. Only 2 ahead of Mexico, but it's the best for North America and CONCACAF as a whole. So now let's move to the strongest continent in football. And Europe has the highest number of teams that can actually win a World Cup. From the top 10 of the FIFA ranking, 8 are Europeans. Croatia is in 10th place, Italy in 9th, Spain in 8th, Portugal in 7th, the Netherlands in 6th, and Belgium in 4th place. For a long time, Belgium was the team that led the ranking. They were leaders from 2019 until the beginning of 2022. But when fell in the group stage of the World Cup, losing to Morocco, dropped to the 4th place in the ranking. So were surpassed by another country, and a country that reached 2 consecutive finals, France. France won the 2018 World Cup, but didn't lead the ranking in the following years cause Belgium was more consistent, you know. Until the Cup in Qatar, when France did what they did. With Mbappe scoring 8 goals, defeated Australia, Denmark, Poland, England, Morocco, and in the final scored 3 goals against Argentina, only losing on penalties. Now France is the best ranked national team in Europe and 2nd place in the FIFA ranking, only behind Argentina. But if those are the best national teams, what is the greatest club from each continent? The club that won the most titles? That's what we talk about in this video. I think you're gonna like it. Thank you and bye.